Donald Trump has approved plans to attack Iran, but has not yet given the final order to do so, according to senior aides to the president and reported by the Wall Street Journal. At a press briefing earlier today, Trump said, "I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change."
Oh, we'll come down so hard if they do anything to our people. We'll come down so hard that the gloves are off so beautifully.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end. A real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that will be permanent.
Or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
Despite Trump's claim that Iran was very close to making a nuclear weapon when Israel launched its bombing campaign, Mark Warner, the vice chairman of the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee, said today that senators were briefed on Monday that U.S. intelligence agencies still see no evidence that Iran is trying to make nuclear weapons. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said that his country will not accept Donald Trump's call for an unconditional surrender. Khamenei said peace or war could not be imposed on the Islamic Republic.
Remarks made by Donald Trump are completely unwarranted, are very hostile. We cannot ignore them. We are vigilant about what Donald Trump is saying. We will put it in our calculations, in our assessments, and there is a line which, if crossed, there should be a response on our side.
Thousands of people were fleeing Tehran today after Israeli warplanes bombed the city overnight as Trump was considering options that include joining Israel in attacking Iranian nuclear sites. The long simmering tensions between Israel and Iran have finally erupted into open warfare, bringing decades of covert operations and proxy conflicts into the global spotlight. On June 13, Israel launched this massive wave of airstrikes targeting Iran's nuclear facilities, key military figures and scientists. These strikes have significantly disrupted Iran's nuclear weapons program. In response, Iran launched missile and drone attacks as both sides edge closer to all-out war. Some Israeli officials now speak openly of regime change in Tehran. The animosity between the two countries has deep roots. Following the establishment of Israel in 1948, Iran was one of the first Muslim-majority nations to recognize the Jewish state. Throughout the 50s and 60s, the two countries enjoyed strong diplomatic ties, with Israel importing Iranian oil and regular flights connecting Tel Aviv and Tehran. However, this relationship collapsed following the 1979 Iranian Revolution. The overthrow of the Shah, a U.S. ally, and the rise of Ayatollah Khamenei transformed Iran into a theocratic republic vehemently opposed to Israel, which it labeled the Little Satan, in contrast to America's Great Satan. Iran's Islamic Republic aligned itself with the Palestinian cause and handed its former Israeli embassy over to the Palestinian Liberation Organization. From then on, hostility towards Israel became a defining feature of Iranian foreign policy. However, during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, the two enemies found common ground. Israel, seeing Iraq under Saddam Hussein as a greater threat, covertly supplied weapons to Iran. Despite its anti-Israel rhetoric, Iran accepted this support, driven by desperation for military supplies. The Iran-Iraq War had profound impact on Iran's strategic thinking. Iraq's missile attacks prompted Iran to develop its own missile program, and by the 1990s, Iran had begun laying the groundwork for a nuclear capability. Despite early religious rulings against nuclear weapons, Iranian leaders, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, increasingly emphasized the need for deterrence. To bolster its regional influence, Iran formed alliances with various anti-Israel groups, including Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen. It also supported Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria and Shia militias in Iraq. Iran's growing network of proxies alarmed Israel and led to intensified Israeli intelligence operations and targeted assassinations of Iranian scientists and military figures throughout the 2010s. Israel has long viewed Iran's nuclear ambitions as an existential threat. With covert backing from the United States, Israel launched cyber attacks, including the infamous Stuxnet virus, which damaged Iran's uranium enrichment facilities. Tensions escalated under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who staunchly opposed the 2015 Iran nuclear deal negotiated by US President Barack Obama. The deal, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, sought to limit Iran's nuclear capabilities in exchange for sanctions relief. Netanyahu argued it was a strategic blunder, while President Trump's election in 2016 aligned US policy more closely with Israel's hardline stance. In 2018, the Trump regime withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action and reimposed sanctions. This marked a turning point. Tensions soared further when the US assassinated Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in 2020. And in the years that followed, Iran accelerated its uranium enrichment and deepened ties with its regional proxies. A 2023 International Atomic Energy Agency report revealed uranium particles enriched to near weapons-grade levels. The situation intensified dramatically after the October 7, 2023 Hamas attacks on Israel, the deadliest since the country's founding. Israel responded with a prolonged war in Gaza, reportedly killing tens of thousands. Israel expanded its military campaign to southern Lebanon, significantly weakening Hezbollah, and conducted joint strikes with the US against the Houthis in Yemen. Last year, Israel bombed the Iranian consulate in Damascus and assassinated Hamas's political leader in Tehran. When Syria's Assad regime collapsed in December last year, Israel capitalized on the power vacuum to neutralize remaining threats in Syria. With Iran's network of proxies effectively dismantled, the Islamic Republic now finds itself more isolated than at any point in recent history. Despite Iran's retaliatory missile and drone strikes, Israeli air defenses have largely neutralized these attacks. Meanwhile, Israeli intelligence has penetrated deeply into Iran, enabling a series of high-profile assassinations and infrastructure strikes. Israel's military success, though, has highlighted its dependence on the United States. Though Washington has so far avoided direct involvement, its tactics support has been crucial. US bunker-busting munitions would be necessary for any attempt to destroy Iran's deeply buried nuclear facilities. What happens next depends heavily on American policy. Donald Trump, known for opposing long-term military entanglements, now faces a pivotal decision. Will the US back Israel in pushing for regime change, or restrain its ally to avoid a broader conflict? Iran's leadership shows no sign of capitulation, but with mounting internal discontent and economic hardship, its future remains uncertain. After more than 4 decades of shadow war, the conflict between Israel and Iran is now fully in the open. What's concerning, though, is Trump's potential role in the situation. Though the extent of his involvement remains uncertain, under President Biden we saw a very different approach, one grounded in what could be described as real war diplomacy. During Biden's term, when Israel previously launched strikes against Iran, the US helped manage the conflict through strategic containment. The US provided Israel with access to advanced defense systems and established a comprehensive regional defense framework, which included cooperation with allies in the United Kingdom and France, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, as well as the deployment of US aircraft carriers, Aegis missile cruisers and fighter jets to deter Iranian retaliation. The understanding was clear. If Israel restricted its attacks to Iran's air defense and missile infrastructure, avoiding strikes on oil facilities, nuclear sites, or top leadership, the US and its partners would help shield it from Iranian counterattacks. The goal was to prevent escalation into a broader conflict, especially given the risks of hitting Iran's nuclear program and triggering unintended consequences. That strategy exemplified careful, high-stakes diplomacy in wartime. In contrast, it's unclear whether any such coordinated effort is happening now. While Donald Trump asserts that similar measures are in place, both his administration and Israeli leadership seem to lack a coherent plan to de-escalate the situation. At this point, the conflict appears likely to continue for weeks or even months, with no clear resolution in sight. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.